It's been 2 years now since the U.S. Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade and allowed abortion issues to go to the states. 2 years later, what kind of impact has that had? My next guest commissioned a study to look into that very question, Congressman Frank Pallone, joining us now. Congressman, thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Walt.
First off, what did your report conclude? How much of an impact has that SCOTUS decision had?
Well, a very disturbing impact, and not only on patients who are seeking abortion or abortion care in states that don't allow it, what we call restrictive states, having to come to places like New Jersey, which we call protective states, but even more of an impact, or just as much of an impact, on the doctors, the providers, because as you can imagine, in the states like Texas that prohibit abortion, they also prohibit any training in medical schools and by OBGYNs and specialists on abortion care or things related to abortion care that affect women's health. So it's very disturbing, because what we're seeing is that in those states where abortion is outlawed or severely restricted, people delay care. Women delay care, and by the time they get to a place like New Jersey that is protective, oftentimes it's much later in the pregnancy. But in addition to that, the doctors aren't getting trained. The OBGYNs in particular, as well as the medical schools, are not training people on how to deal with a lot of women's health issues, particularly abortion. And then they'll come to New Jersey at Rutgers, for example, for some 4-week training period, which taxes our state, not only in terms of people coming here for women's health care, but also for doctors coming here to train in OBGYNs as specialists, because they can't be trained in the state where they're a resident or where they're going to med school. So the whole thing is very disturbing. It really is.
Now, the Supreme Court ruling obviously sent abortion back to the states. Here in New Jersey, I have to assume, you mentioned the change perhaps in workload, but the law hasn't changed much here. So did your study find any spillover effect for New Jersey beyond that, or are we pretty much in a significant change?
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt you. We had a roundtable just this last week at Rutgers Medical School in New Brunswick, which I represent. And what we found from the OBGYNs, the specialists, as well as the doctors and the medical school administrators, that they are terribly overburdened. They're getting sicker patients. They're having to train people from out of state. And they're not necessarily getting the funding to do that. So it is overburdening them not only financially but also mentally, and a lot of severe stress. And the problem is that in the long term, if this isn't changed, you may find that there aren't even doctors who can educate OBGYNs or those in medical school about women's health, particularly with regard to abortion services. So this is not something that is just for now. This is getting worse, and our investigation by my committee, the Energy and Commerce Committee, is ongoing.
So briefly, want to switch gears. New Jersey Transit has had a rough couple of months, a lot of delays, a lot of cancellations. We're going to talk about some of the proposals to fix that later in the show, but I wanted to give you a chance to weigh in. You've been critical. Do you think something needs to be done?
A lot needs to be done, and to be honest, a lot has been done in the last few weeks because of pressure from myself and other members of the congressional delegation. A lot more money and time is being spent by Amtrak and New Jersey Transit on trying to repair the overhead wires and the signal systems. We've also applied in mid-July for a series of grants that would replace the overhead wires and the signal systems permanently, and that hopefully gets approved and starts by the end of this year.